I was born in Port Barre, Louisiana, and just imagine November 2nd, 1929, just a couple of days after the greatest financial crash in the world. It must have been a real happy sight to a family that was struggling for a living at the time. My mom and dad already had 2 boys. We lived in Port Barre for, well, until right at World War II. I can remember my young days there. Family was in dire straits for most of the time. Just thinking back, we had no electricity, no running water, no sewage. My dad was mayor of the town as far back as I can remember. He was mayor of Port Barre. And I recall back in 1939, he finally managed to get electricity into town, which changed matters completely. I mean, my God, we had electric fans, electric lights, and a refrigerator, and things like that, which we never had enjoyed before. I went to Lafayette High. At that time, we had our high school system, our grammar school system consisted of an 11th grade regimen instead of the 12th year that we had now. So I was 16 years old, started school at Lafayette High, and of course then graduated 3 years later in 1946. My high school years were wartime years. I can remember the rationing, the shortages, but we had no sporting events to speak of because the paraphernalia needed for most sporting events was simply not available. And the focus of everyone was on getting out of the wars with Germany and Japan. As soon as I was 17 years old, I was determined to get into the military. I did. I enlisted in a program became available in the Army where I could enlist for 18 months. So I did. I enlisted. I got into an infantry outfit, and I served my 18 months in the infantry. I learned that it wasn't a pleasant existence. Got out of the Army in 1947. Immediately went back to SLI, and I was pursuing an engineering course. I was interested in electrical engineering, and while I was there, well, a couple of years later, this Korean situation developed. I was confronted then with a prospect of getting back in an infantry company as an infantry soldier, and I didn't really look forward to that. It was August. Well, I think the war, the Korean War, started sometime in the spring of 1950. By August of that year, I just decided I needed to make a step. I got an opportunity to get in the Air Force. The Army kindly agreed to give me a discharge in order to allow that, and I did. I enlisted in the Air Force on a 4-year commitment, really to avoid getting back in the infantry. And I spent 4 years. The Air Force immediately put me into electronics school, so that was not bad. I got 9 months of intensive electronics education. Left there and was stationed in Eglinfield, Florida. Actually, by the time I arrived in Korea, the 5th Air Force had, for whatever reason, assigned me to a unit in Central Korea, taking care of radio and radar systems on F-84 fighter bombers, which were being used to bomb North Korea at the time. And when the captain who was flying the first B-26 came over to recruit me, in effect, to get back in the infrared program, I was pretty well entrenched where I was. I was pretty comfortable, and I managed to stay there. I spent my entire year in Korea. I was discharged from the Air Force in August of 1954. At that time, I registered the SLI in September, I think it was, I'm sure. And I began pursuing studies in pre-law. At the same time, I was dating Katie and trying to put together enough hours to make it into law school. I succeeded at both. By May of the next year, Katie and I got married, and I filed an SLI, a transcript from SLI with the LSU Law School, and I got into law school, and we moved into the huts. They had a set of veterans huts on Nicholson Drive, right near the stadium, and we joined with a group of people who became lifelong friends. I had some friends in the law firms around here, and they started giving me little assignments of workers' compensation, cure cases. You know, the defendants needed a lawyer to represent the plaintiff in workers' comp settlements, and they'd pay me $15 to $25, something like that. And with that and the few adoptions and mortgages and friends' criminal matters, we managed to live until right on through. My friend Jim Curley, he got out of Tulane, and he finally joined me after about 6 months to form the law firm of McBride and Curley. McBride and Curley remained in existence probably for, I don't know, several years, but Curley became interested in politics, and I just didn't gravitate in that direction. I had my own practice. I managed to do reasonably well. Richard wasn't really interested in doing any trial work, so I ended up handling all of his trial matters, which was very beneficial to me. We continued that until, well, in 1966, I think it was July of 1966, one of our neighbors was practicing law right around the corner, and he was killed in an automobile accident on General Mouton drove his vehicle into, apparently had a heart attack and drove his vehicle into Bayou Vermilion. Bill McBride, Bill was no relation of mine, but he had a small practice right around the corner from us. He was working with his partners Norm Foray and Bill Brewster. Well, as I say, that was in July. I believe it was sometime in August. They approached me to join with them to see if they could maintain the heavy trial schedule which Bill had put together. And I looked it over and decided that I wanted to do that, and I did. I moved out of my office, joined with them around the corner in the law firm of McBride and Brewster. The law firm of McBride and Foray evolved into McBride, Foray, Rosai, and Leonard. I guess 3 or 4 years after Norm and I got together, after Bill Brewster had died, rather, Glenn Rosai joined us, and we continued our practice. And I think it was around probably the early 1980s, we were joined by Jim Leonard, and we changed the firm name to McBride, Foray, Rosai, and Leonard. I started doing quite a bit of industrial defense work in addition to the plaintiff practice which I had developed early on. The practice was moving along quite well. We picked up a couple of insurance companies doing defense work, and it got to where I was concentrating more on industrial accident work and gravitating into a sort of a specialization in the defense of electrical utility accident cases. I can remember another occasion I was in court in St. Martinville, and again we had a packed courtroom. It was a jury trial. Things had been going along for maybe half an hour or so, mid-morning. The judge shut the trial down. At that time in St. Martinville, there was one entire wall of the courtroom had windows, and I think there were shades or something. And he had the bailiff pull the shades up and instructed everybody that a Sputnik was going to pass by, so we were going to watch. We were going to watch Sputnik. So we all lined up at the windows, and here we are, everybody looking out at 10:30 in the morning to watch Sputnik come by. And I don't remember if we saw Sputnik or not, but things went on from there. At some point, Jim Davidson took me out to lunch and invited me to join his firm in an of counsel capacity. I considered it, and I did. At the close of my career, I was practicing in their office of counsel, and I continue of counsel with that firm today, Davidson, Moe, Sonia, and McGilligan. There was no formal retirement from the law for me. I quit looking for any work, and I let it be known that I was available if necessary, that if any of my friends or clients needed legal help, they needed to let me know ahead of time, and they needed to know that if the fishing got good, things would have to be delayed possibly, and that's the way I've done it. I don't know that I even want to take anything on when the fishing's bad right now, but that's what I fish and hunt, and Katie and I travel. From my point of view, if I can be remembered just as a rather interesting person whose people might have enjoyed being around, whose family realizes that it was a good run, and I hope it continues to be a pretty good run.